In this video, we're going to look at topic 71, example 5, where we use quadratic regression. So Esteban is training for the discus throw, and his coach has recorded the horizontal distance and height of one of Esteban's discus throws. Seems kind of unrealistic, measuring height and distance, whatever. Not the most realistic problem, but we'll work with it because it's what the book gives us. The graph shows the horizontal distance the discus traveled in meters and the height of the discus also in meters. What will be the height of the discus when it has traveled 15 meters from Esteban? All right, so what we're looking for is obviously if we throw, or Esteban throws this discus, eventually it's going to come back down to the ground. We're trying to figure out what the height of that discus is after when it's 15 meters away from him. Okay, this is a pretty easy problem to do. It is a little bit annoying to type the information in, but the calculator is going to do the vast majority of the work for us. All right, and we're going to use something called a quadratic regression. Basically, what that does is the calculator is going to take the numbers that we plug in, and they're going to kind of extrapolate this and say, hey, if it keeps going, this is what's going to happen. And a quadratic means that it's eventually going to come back down, right? So we're looking for some kind of quadratic function. If we use linear regression, that would give us a straight line. There's also cubic regressions, which will give us a cubic function, and there's so on. Okay, but we're worried about quadratic regression because we're throwing an object here. All right, so now how do we actually do this? What you want to do is you want to go into see where it says list under stat. So you're going to hit second list, and then you have these lists of L1, L2, L3, L4, L5, L6, things like that. Okay. What we can do is you've entered those, you have this L1 that'll pop up. What we want to do is we actually want to edit those. So if you just go to lists and you select them and hit enter, you're going to come up with like errors and stuff like this. So we don't want to just click on that list. We need to edit it. And to do that, you click on stat. All right, now it doesn't say anything about list on this screen other than step 4, where it says clear list. But what you want to do is you want to go to option 1 and you're going to select edit. And now here you have these L1, L2, L3, L4, L5 columns. And we're going to create a list of numbers. Okay, and the numbers that we're going to use are the values of each of these points. So here, and again, this will take a little bit of time, but my list 1 is going to be all my x values. All right, so I'm going to enter 1, and then I would enter 2, 3, 4. Each one of these goes up, and then we have all the way up to 10. All right. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4. Make sure that they're all listed. If you miss one, it's going to throw everything off. So it does become a little bit tedious, but make sure they're all in there. Now you can scroll over to list 2. And for list 2, so let me label this. We're going to say for L1, that's going to be these blue values, the x values. And then for L2, we're going to use our y values. So again, it does become a little bit tedious. Usually you're not always given 10 numbers. If you look at the try it, there's 6 numbers there, so it won't be as bad. But for L2, we're going to type in the y values. Okay, so let's do that. So L2, we have 1.75. Again, you want to be extra careful with these. Make sure that these are being typed in exactly as they're supposed to. Make sure everything matches up. So typing in up to 9, so 7.99, and then finally for 10 we have 8.55. Okay. So make sure you have your 10 numbers listed. If you want to double, triple check them, I would highly recommend that. Because if one little decimal is off, the whole thing could be thrown off. Or not could be, it will be thrown off. All right, so now that we have our list type in using our X and our Y values, we can quit out of that screen. And now I can actually go to the stat screen. All right, and I'm going to go over to calculate. And remember, we're looking for quadratic regression. So if we scroll down, you can see that option 4 is linear regression. Option 5, quadratic, 6 is cubic, 7 is quartic, and so on. We're looking for quadratic regression. So we're going to select option 5, select enter, and they're going to ask you for the X list and the Y list. Make sure that you're selecting list 1 and 2. Let's say you had entered a different list. You obviously could edit these and you could select what list you would want to put in. But since we were careful about it, type in list 1, list 2. If these aren't the correct ones, you can go to second list and then select the list that you wanted. But either way, that's all there. Don't worry about anything else. Just scroll down to calculate and hit calculate. It's now going to tell you that y is equal to ax squared plus bx plus c, right? That's our standard form. And they're giving us the a, b, and c values. What I'm going to recommend is that you go 3 decimal places. So I'm going to say that y is equal to negative 0.027 x squared plus 1.085 x, that's our b value, and then our c value would be plus 0.672. Okay. And this is the equation that we're going to work with. Right. Unfortunately, that's not our answer. We're not quite done yet because we're still looking for the height, but that's the equation that we can now use. Okay. A couple different options here on how you could figure this out and calculate this, but let's say that we have this here. This is what we're going to work with. Okay. I'm going to leave the quadratic regression on the screen for now so we can reference back to it. We're looking for when the height of the discus when it's traveled 15 meters. So the 15 is going to be our x value. So I'm going to say y is equal to negative 0.027, and then I'm going to plug in 15 as my x. You could figure this out. You can calculate all of this. One of the things you could do too is you can type this equation as your y equals without the 15s, and you could check to see if this works. I'll do that in a second at the end. But when you multiply all this out, I'm not going to multiply it step by step, but when you multiply this, you're going to get approximately 10.467. Okay. So what that tells me is that, again, we're trying to answer this question here, what will the height of the discus, what will be the height of the discus when it's traveled 15 meters? So the height after 15 meters is approximately 10.467 meters. All right, so this is our actual answer. All right. Not the easiest problem. It does take a bit of time. Fortunately, you don't have to do a ton of calculating. Now, let's say you didn't want to do all the work that would be required in between here and here, right? I didn't write it all out. What you could do is when we're, quit that. You can go to your y equals and you can type in what you had here. So we had negative 0.027 x squared plus 1.085x plus 0.672. Now, the reason this will work is because I have a pretty clear number of 15. If it was different numbers, maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. But what I can do is once that's typed in, I can go to my table and I can scroll down to an x value of 15. And you'll see that we get 10.872, which is not exactly what we had, but it is pretty close. Again, there's going to be some rounding because of numbers that we had here. Make sure I type this in correctly, or 0.27, 1.085, and 0.672. Well, either way, the number is slightly different. That's going to happen with your linear regression, quadratic regression, cubic regressions, is things will not be calculated completely perfectly. They're going to be approximations, but these numbers are pretty close. We're only off by 0.4, so not going to be such a huge deal. And that's it for that one. I know it's a pain. I know it's definitely not something you would look forward to doing. The good news is that the tried example only has 6 steps or 6 points that you have to type in, and I think you'll be okay with it.